Hi, guys, and we're here again with another episode
Yes.
on Love and Everything in Between
Yes.
podcast. And today we're going to be going into.
A very, very interesting topic. A topic that seems to be everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's doing it. I mean, you can hardly go on social media or in any type of media without seeing some mention of it. But it's still
A very dicey topic to
it's still,
delve
yeah,
into.
it's still a sort of hush hush topic that nobody really wants to talk about. So, and it's basically just sex. Yeah, sex is everywhere but nowhere.
Mm.
Really interesting dichotomy there. But yeah, stay with us on this episode, and we'll be right back.
Yes. So yes, we have spoken about sex in season one,
Yes,
perspective and the encounters and experience that we had
yes. As
as a
a
married
married
couple
couple,
and our expectations on sex. And I still would like, it's a very sensitive topic for me because I would like people to be well educated on it. So with us is an expert who is I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I think I will allow her introduce herself. But I've had a very personal encounter with her. She helped me with my own sexual journey, and it's a huge pleasure for to have her here with us. So, welcome. Should I put doctor in front of your name?
doctor of sex.
No, no, no. She's actually the chancellor, BC Sexopades.
Sex University.
Welcome, and thank you for
you.
joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Please just give us a quick introduction so that we get to know more of you.
Okay, so my name is Olawunmi. So I'm trained as a psychotherapist, a psychologist, and a psychosexual therapist. And so that's basically what I do. I like to say that I help individuals and couples
Yes, you do.
take their sex lives from routine,
Okay.
average, same old, to mind blowing, exciting, passionate, and things like that. So basically, that's the long and short of it.
And you're a mom,
Yes,
and
a wife.
you stress
a
Mr.
mom.
E. Mr. E.
Yes,
I would
yes.
one day like to have him here just to hear how he feels being married to a sex therapist.
He's going through a
but
lot.
it's really if you say so yourself. Okay, but it's really nice to have you here. And so I think what we'll first start with would be as individuals, two individuals coming together to live or start a marriage, a journey.
Mhm.
Even if you were sexually active, which you shouldn't, even if you were sexually active before then, what is the expectation? What are we getting into? Because even when we had the conversation before we got married, because Robert talks a lot, say, oh, I want this, I want this. No, now when I mean sorry,
It's okay,
sorry.
but no problem.
So he told me, oh, we'll have sex 4 times a day. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah. And then we get it, I'm like, brother, please, I don't used to on like machine like that. So
Yeah.
what are the expectations?
Well, I think that first of all, people need to have conversations about this thing, right? About sex, and not just expect that it will fall into place. So this is one of the greatest misconceptions that I find
that you
out
encounter.
there. And so whether people have been sexually active
Or
prior
not.
or people have not,
Yeah.
one of the things I hear a lot is people say, we thought it will fall into place.
Yes.
Right? And I say the sex is not as easy as you think it is, but it's also not as hard, right? But people don't really, when we talk about sex, there's a lot of focus on the mechanics of it. So the physicality of it, but not so much the psychology of it, right? And that's where things can get very tricky because the psychology also affects, of course, the
Will affect
physical
your
expression
output,
of that. And so people are not necessarily talking about where they're coming from sexually. And I say this a lot. Behind every person that you see, so behind every person's sexual behavior that you see on the outside is informed by a whole lot of things. So where they're coming from,
Background.
their experiences, what they've been taught, what they've been learned, what they've even heard from other people, their emotions, so many things. So if somebody comes to me and says, I don't enjoy sex, I'm not looking at what you're saying to me here on the surface. I'm looking at where you're coming from and why that is, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these things, people are not necessarily talking about all of these things. People just think, oh, it's just going to fall into place. So I usually would say having that foundation of very good communication about what you're going into sexually is very important. And communication about sex is not just limited to,
How
oh,
many
touch
times
me like this,
how
baby.
many times a week
Exactly.
are we
How many
doing
times
it?
I want to do it,
Yeah.
right? But also where are you coming from,
What
right?
sexual experience do you have?
Exactly. What sexual experiences do you have? What are your expectations, right? What are the things you've learned when it comes to, when you think about sex?
What comes to mind?
Exactly, what comes to mind? What's your perception? What are your beliefs about it? And all of these things have to come into play because there's a lot going on beneath the surface. What you just see outside is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a lot going on.
Okay, so you mentioned sexual experiences, and I know that, like you said, for each person, you don't know where they are coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so background, what you might
Baggage.
baggage, what you might have encountered.
Yeah.
Now, how do I know Nigerians? We don't talk a lot.
About sex.
Not just even about sex. We just don't feel like
We don't open up about
we don't open
feelings.
about
private
feelings,
things,
about
yeah.
private
Private
things.
things, yes,
You want to just
basically.
keep some things to yourself as like, okay, this thing is my experience. I don't really need. I don't feel proud about it.
Yeah.
Now, how does that now lead into habits that will not affect you in the future?
Okay.
Yes.
So, first of all, when you say that Nigerians don't talk about, I mean, a lot of
Of
these
things.
things, again, it's not only Nigerians, but yeah, the truth is in our society, there's a lot of shame around sex.
Yes.
There's the expectation that, I mean, when you were growing up, did anybody teach you to talk about sex?
No.
Did you even have? Did you ever
You
ask?
not deliver. Who am I going to ask?
Exactly. Did you
you
ever
went
ask?
to you came to me to say
What
you
is
want to talk about
sex?
sex. They don't look at you like what's in bad you. You have
Like
spoiled.
prostitutes. You're
Something
going
is going on.
around.
Exactly.
You know. So
And
you won't want that. You won't
exactly,
want that.
absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what did that tell you about it? It's
It's
not something we
something
talk
we talk
about.
about.
Yes.
It's
And
forbidden.
It's forbidden.
Exactly, it's taboo, it's forbidden, it's
Yeah.
not something we talk about. And people essentially carry on with that mindset
All the way into marriage.
right? And so you see that. So for instance, I've worked with people who have struggled with sex for a long time, right? A lot of damage has been done. And then they come maybe 10 years later and say, oh, we finally decided that we're going to seek help. Why? Because nobody
told
the,
me.
the mentality is you fix this by yourself. It's not something you talk about. It's
you
something
go
you
and
do
meet a
behind
third
closed
party.
doors. Exactly. And at that point, a lot of damage
Has been
done. Do you understand? A lot of damage has been done. And, you know, so many things have happened. And so all of those experiences that we have also inform how we treat sex, even in marriage,
Going
right?
forward,
You
yeah.
have a lot of people who are going through struggles that can very easily be resolved
But if they had voiced
do you
out or said
understand?
something.
And I've met people who said, "Oh, I wish I met you before I got divorced." Right? So you see things like this are happening, and then if you also look at experiences that people have, right, even prior to coming into marriage, that also informs expectations. So maybe somebody has had several girlfriends or boyfriends, right? And this one is even really common, where maybe a man has had several experiences and
he now gets into
marriage. Gets into marriage and it's different.
It's a different ballgame.
Exactly. And then he's like, but when I was with Shade, with Titi, with Choma, it was not like that. They used to come anyhow. What's wrong with you?
Comparisons will now start happening.
Exactly, right? And comparisons start happening. And one of the things that it also does is separate the couple. So it's not our issue. It's
your issue.
It's your issue. So
because
it's
from me,
I'm good. Like I'm all right. But you have to. Do you understand? And that's the thing. When you start to divide and distance yourselves like that, it creates more problems than it solves, right? Because now we're not a united front saying how do we move forward? How do we get a solution to this? Is now I'm good. You are not fine.
So you need a solution.
Exactly.
I don't need a solution.
I don't exactly, and that happens a lot. So some of those experiences also informs things like that again, because I mean the fact that there's so much shame around sex has done a lot of damage, right? So there's no understanding that sexual experiences and each person's unique experiencing of sex can be different. So if you've been having a certain kind of experience and then you meet somebody else and the experience is different. You're like, oh, something must be wrong with you.
It doesn't have to be something is wrong.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be something is wrong. People can be different. Our differences don't have to separate us. They can actually make us better, because it means that I have to acquire a different skill set to be able to learn you because this is new to me. And it also means that you also have to be
Absolutely.
open enough to say, okay, I'm good, but I just need to understand
what is
myself.
going on.
Exactly.
Okay, so based on what you're saying, sex is really important. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important would you say sex is
In marriage.
Well, so this would differ. So I'm going to say this would differ from couple to couple. You
Okay.
have some people who like they want to have sex every day, and it's very important to them. And then you can have another couple, they have sex once in 2 weeks and they are fine. Right? So rating wise, it can differ from person to person, right? And some people also identify as asexual, right?
Yeah.
And for them, they're like, well, it's not a big deal. And both of them are okay. The problem is when there's a discrepancy between the two people, right? So maybe one person wants it every day and the other person wants it once in 2 weeks. That's where the problem is. But if you're equally yoked, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is to say there's a problem?
So, I want to come back to when we talked about the experiences and habits. Now, what are the kind of habits that can come up based on past experiences when you come into a union, a marriage? Like, what are the habits that you tend, like, because based on your experience from just a spectrum, what are the habits that can come up?
Okay, so one of it is expecting sex to be an instinctive response, like pleasure and responding to sex to be instinctive, right? And it's not necessarily so
For the person.
for everybody, right? So I mean, if you look at a lot of people have read a lot of Mills and Bones and watched so many things.
Oh
you know when you watch movies and then the man is across the room, the woman is across the room, and then
there's a chemistry,
and
then when they just touch,
sparks are flying.
Exactly.
mutual orgasm.
Oh yeah, there's that as well.
Exactly.
We have to come at the same time.
All of these things all play into all of these expectations that people have about sex. So we're expecting that it should be instinctive because we love each other. It should just
come
magically,
come naturally. It should fall into place, but it's not necessarily
like
so.
that.
And it's not. And when we have these conversations, a lot of people think it just skews towards the women alone. Not necessarily so. There's also this belief that men are the ones who should be like sexually forward, sexually aggressive.
They should want to instigate.
Exactly, initiate and all of those things. But the truth is that you also have some men who are sexually, I want to say conservative, yeah. You have some men who are like that and who are not like very sexually forward. And when some women meet men like that, they're like, something's wrong with you. Yeah. Exactly, because this is not the expectation that we had.
And this is the norm I have from
men, that you're supposed to be the more aggressive one sexually, and that's not necessarily so for everybody. And same thing with maybe a man having met women who would have orgasms during penetration and stuff like that, and then you're meeting someone who is not necessarily having orgasms with penetration, and you're like, what's going on?
Wrong with
is it that I'm not performing?
Exactly.
And then, and then there's that whole performance anxiety, because there's that. If you're a man,
you would.
If she's not, you never perform. You don't know what you're doing.
You don't know what you're doing.
It is true. So, but how do you now walk couples through that? Because I know you would have, so like you said, it differs for everybody. It differs for every couple as time goes. But now, say for example, scenario, like he has said, performance anxiety. The man is not aware that that's what's wrong with him at the time. He just feels like, okay, I know my history. The problem can be, the problem cannot be with me. Here? And then you meet a lady that doesn't come through, that doesn't penetrative sex, you understand? And he's probably not the type that wants to go into the whole foreplay. You understand?
So it's not like it now starts overdoing.
Exactly.
Let me go and take
Viagra.
Let me take that. So I'll just keep going for 2 hours.
So there's this disconnect happening, and you're like, okay. So how do you reel both? If they eventually own up to. Yeah. Maybe not own up. If they eventually come out and say, okay, I want to talk about
what's even the starting point?
Yes. So when you have a couple like that, it's very important to understand what their beliefs are about sex, and then you want to see whether it's a misalignment, for them. So this person believes, sex should be very penis centered, so focused on intercourse alone, right? And she should be able to come, and be able to make her sing the hallelujah chorus, right? And then the other person is like, you're doing it, but I'm not really feeling anything, right? And to me, this is not what is important to me when it comes to sex. I've had lots of women say to me, even more than the physical aspects of sex, the emotional aspects are what
Matters to them.
exactly, are the things that matter to me as a woman, are the things that actually put me in that space where I'm softening towards him and I'm responding in the bedroom, right? And you have more men wanting to get that reaction in the bedroom without necessarily doing the emotional
groundwork
outside it. So we want to find out, how are these people defining sex, and is it a line? Right? How are they defining sex, and is it a line? So is it for you very physical experience and that's where it ends, and it's for this person it's very emotional and what have you? So we want to find out where they are, what they define sex as, what it means to them, and then gradually start to bring them to that point where they start to move, together. So everybody's like moving. The fact that this person wants a physical expression, it's not a bad thing, right?
Everybody can own up to whatever
exactly. So everybody can put their desires on the table without feeling judged. It's not a bad thing either way. We just want to be able to find that sweet spot that works for both of you as a couple.
So I once had a friend who I found it was a very strange scenario for me, but he told me that he and his wife could be fighting, and they would still have sex.
I was actually going to say something like that.
They would be having we're not speaking to each other,
but
in the middle of the night,
if I touch
if I touch you, we'll have the sex,
and then
everybody will continue. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I honestly couldn't. I didn't understand that. But I feel like
some
couples there's a power dynamic
where they use
when it comes to sex, and so you have guys who are when I want it, I want it. That's it. You can't ask me anything. Then you have the women who say, "Oh, you're misbehaving. Oh yeah, now nothing for you." And I think these stereotypes have been perpetuated
a lot, over time.
Yeah.
What are your views on that, and what are the right ways to approach these types of things?
So I hear you. I mean, just to expand on that a bit. So I hear you when you see people use sex as a weapon, and it's true. But there's another side to it, a different angle, maybe that hasn't really been looked at. There's some people that when they're not in an emotionally good place, they cannot have sex. It doesn't mean that they're using it as a weapon. It just means for them, it's not a desire that can be elicited at that time, because for them, sexual desire is very deeply connected to being in a good place emotionally.
That's me.
But when
we are fighting, make up sex. No, let me process
it means that, excuse me, if you have said we have finished the fight, I have processed it. I have forgiven. You have to make it up. You have to seal it. How will you stamp it? You have to stamp it.
You can stamp it tomorrow, but continue. Yes, I just say I should say that.
So it's possible that one person hasn't fully processed the emotions, and so they are not in that space where they want to be able to have sex. But it doesn't mean that they are withholding. It's just that for them, from a very authentic place, that desire is not coming because of what has happened. But then again, you have people who use it as, but it's a barter system. Exactly.
You do something good for me.
Exactly.
If you
send money to me,
you're gonna get it tonight.
Sad.
Yeah, and it's very manipulative.
Yes,
right?
It's extremely.
And I honestly don't think that between a couple, sex should be something that should be a tool of manipulation. Right? I believe in the free expression of each other and just enjoying, no tricks, no games, no manipulation. It's just us being naked, unashamed, enjoying, vulnerable, right? And having experiences that are good for us, not cat and mouse, not all of that manipulation. I think it can do a lot more. It can do a lot more harm than good for the relationship, honestly.
So I want to ask something else. Like, not all sex has to be intercourse.
Yes.
Right. And not all sex has to lead to an orgasm.
True.
Yeah, so now, because most people believe that if I've not orgasmed, the sex hasn't happened.
You're shaking a very big table here.
because really
it's both sides. So some people believe that if I haven't orgasmed, it hasn't happened. Yeah. And there's people who believe that if this other person has no orgasm, I've not delivered.
Exactly. So then how do you now balance that?
Because it becomes a cycle.
Yes. Yeah. And so if you look at it again in the society that we are, the way we have defined sex is intercourse. So
Yes.
people, you had sex. The expectation is that you
It must
mean
be
that you had
penetrative. Yeah.
intercourse, but that is not the intercourse is part of sex, but that's not the
Entire
entirety of
thing of
what
sex. Yeah.
sex can look like. So if you look at how sex even happens, physiologically in the body, where you go through desire, arousal, and all of those things, and then you orgasm and what have you. For instance, for a woman, for instance, that can happen, and even for a man, that can happen without the penis never going anywhere near the vagina. So a woman can enjoy all
Love
the
that.
pleasure without the penis even going anywhere near the vagina. And even for a man can enjoy pleasure, ejaculate, and all of that without
Having to penetrate.
having intercourse, right? So it's just that people have not really expanded
Yes.
their definition of what sex
Sex
can
is
look like.
can look
Yeah.
like. Okay. So this table that
The one
you
about
don't want to touch it.
the one about orgasm. So again, the way all of these things have been, you know what is
Defined.
very interesting? Even our traditional understanding of what an orgasm is, which is that culmination of pleasure where you explode and you see bright lights and everything, and then your body comes back to that is it's the traditional definition of an orgasm. But do you know that you can actually have orgasms and you're not exploding, but that pleasure is just moving through your body. So for instance, there's this thing that I do where I am like just moving pleasure through my body, right?
You know you're not saying you're not
Please teach. I want to know how to move pleasure through my body. Very important.
You know you are saying you're not normal.
So like I've been moving it around.
How do you just sit down and move pleasure around your body? What's going on?
I mean, so
It's a skill.
again, exactly. So for someone like me, I'm very pleasure oriented.
Yeah.
I like pleasure in all of its forms, and so sometimes I just lie down, I'm relaxing, I'm breathing, I'm visualizing, and then I'm just moving just by breathing. So I'm sitting in front of you now, and I can arouse myself without even touching myself or anybody even touching me, or even having mental stimulations, right? I can just do that with just my breath, right? And so sometimes I do that and I move all of that energy through my
your
body.
Okay.
Even if I don't eventually like have
The bright
the
light
regular orgasm that we think, I can carry. So that's what usually people would call a full body orgasm or an energy orgasm. But it's not necessarily an expulsion, except if you want it to be. But you can move all of that pleasure through your body, right? And it just keeps your body in the place where if somebody now touches you like this,
you have good senses are already.
do you understand?
aroused. Yeah.
Because you are in a very high level. So I'm going about my daily duties, but I'm very, very attuned to my
your
body.
pleasure.
Do you understand? And my pleasure. So just
A touch
exactly.
can now
Do
escalate
you understand
it.
exactly? So things like that
Like
are
battery ever ready.
But this woman, oh, I did an episode with Mr. E. He would spill. So
so back to the orgasm thing.
Yeah.
Again, the way we think about things in a traditional sense is not the full picture. It's just our picture, but it's not the entirety of what it can look like, right? So people can have sex, any form of it at all, and you enjoy it, but you just don't have an orgasm. It doesn't mean that you haven't had sex.
You haven't had sex.
It just means that it didn't end in an orgasm. And that's just
And
as
that's,
simple as
and
that.
that's not necessarily a bad
It's
thing.
not necessarily a bad thing at all. And so I hear a lot of men say to me, "Oh, she didn't orgasm," and I feel like my work was not done. And sometimes the women are even like,
"What are you doing? What have you been doing
I'm
since?"
good.
Fine, yeah.
Like I'm good, and then men are no. How can you be good? How can you be
You must be screaming my name.
That's not good. No.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, that's not to say people shouldn't have orgasms, but I'm just saying
that
it shouldn't be a fixation like that.
Yeah.
But
So
I mean, it's good.
So that you get to enjoy the experience either way.
Because I also think that even the fixation on the orgasm takes away from the experience itself.
Yes, especially if that's what you are.
You're not enjoying the journey. No, you're not enjoying the
exactly.
journey of the pleasure itself. It's just end goal.
So I think also talking about it. So I think for me, what I would say is when you get into your marriage or union or whatever, I think the first thing to do is not to rush to like, okay, we must just have sex for. I think it's just to explore, learn each person's body. Like now for people that have probably never had sex before marriage, they don't know what to do. You know, so I think it's something that should be imbibed in counseling classes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you understand, like, okay, get to know this person's body. You don't know what turns you on. You don't know what triggers you. You don't know what part of your body is
Yeah.
sensitive, you know. So I
You
think
see,
first,
Absolutely.
you see that counseling class thing, yeah. In its current form, does not work.
no, that's
As
it.
far as I'm concerned,
I
it
think it
doesn't
should
work.
be added and imbibed. So I
Yes,
think
they
you
should.
first explore yourself,
It's a
Yeah.
lot.
learn to understand the person, your spouse's
Yeah.
body, so that way
Absolutely.
you start, like you said, enjoying the journey. So that
Understand
But can I
your
also
spouse,
say
understand
something?
your
Yes.
body.
Absolutely. Can I also say something? When you talk about people who have like never had
had
sex before,
yeah.
something very interesting happens,
Okay.
right? That is usually not accounted for.
Okay.
So somebody is going from I've never
Never
had
had
sex,
sex.
and more often than not, the default mindset is I have suppressed it because I wanted to deal with that sexual urge, especially if people are doing it from a space of faith,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so people have like suppressed that
Suppressed it,
urge.
yeah.
So when I marry,
Exactly. So when I marry, exactly.
I'm gonna unleash
Now,
the dragon.
exactly. And then you try
There's
to
now
unleash
no
the
dragon.
dragon. There's no dragon.
or the dragon is coughing, no
So
fire.
so what
Yeah.
happens?
Because one thing that isn't accounted for is a period of transition. How do you go from suppressing for the most part of your life,
yeah.
to expressing? It doesn't happen overnight, but that's the expectation that people think it should happen
Once
overnight.
you said I do,
I do,
that
exactly.
sexual thing has been switched on.
There has to be that process of transitioning, that process of undoing what has been done over the years to keep you in that space of
Suppressing
celibacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's that process of undoing that, and that's a very mental and psychological process. So you find people who are married and they're like, in fact, I had someone who had been married for like 15 years, and she's been in that mental space for 15 years.
Was she aware of it?
She was. She just felt,
Something is
I
wrong.
want it, but
I
I
just
still
can't.
feel like it's still a sin. I still feel
because
like,
because you
how
spent
can
your
I
whole
be
life
exactly? How
looking
can
at it
I
as
be a person of faith and be screaming, "Oh God, oh God"? Like, how do I reconcile that? So they've been married for a really long time, with years of the husband wanting, and so it was. So when she started to work with me, we worked together for, I think it was about 12 weeks.
Wow.
And the person at the end was unrecognizable.
Really?
She couldn't even recognize herself
herself.
at the end of it. Like, it was crazy. The transformation was night and day.
How did the husband now take it?
Bro's good. You'll
No,
be saying,
but you know,
I'm sure he
because-
still sends you Christmas cards.
No, because you know there's this other belief of some very stereotypical men that
Yeah.
traditional.
Yes.
You know, so if they're used to the woman has to be the
Muted and
muted
Yeah.
type, and then
Sexually.
she's dealing with stuff saying,
Yeah.
I want more, but I don't know how to. And then she now goes about it, and then
Yeah, and then
tries
comes
that. The
back
man's
and,
like,
where
where did you learn
well,
this from?
well, even though you should
Carry the person along.
because the person
Yeah.
knows that you're on a journey,
Yes,
and the person goes on
exactly.
a journey with you. But if you just go by yourself,
but it happens. So I mean, in a lot of cases, you find that the husband is also on board.
yes.
Okay.
Like,
Which is
good,
very
which is
important.
very good and
Exactly,
important,
right?
yeah.
And I think what you say actually applies as well to even people who have had other sexual experiences.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's not even about just the suppression. Some people
Yeah.
are coming in from sexual experiences where they're feeling shame.
Yeah.
Some people are feeling like, like don't want DeMarco, I can
Yeah,
make
exactly.
anything
I can do
happen.
anything,
yeah.
Some people think, oh my God, I'm the Playboy Playmate of the year, and then you get into this new relationship, and then it's not happening like that.
Yeah.
You know, the period of transition.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what happens in that case? In a lot of cases, what then happens is, if it's the man that is the Don Juan, right? And it's feeling like something must be wrong with you, more often than not, he starts to look out. Because it's like, this is not just, we're
This
not
is not what it
compatible.
is.
And people are very, very quick to say we're
We're
not
not
sexually
compatible.
compatible.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's how do you know if you're sexually
Sexually compatible.
compatible?
That's the
Because
thing.
there's a big thing, and we spoke about this in season 1, where I was like, personally, I don't think you know that whole try before you buy.
Yeah.
It's a big thing where people be like, how am I going to know if you can?
I have to test
I have
it.
to test it. I have to
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
I don't think it applies personally, because I think there are a lot of dynamics
Yes.
that
In
are
play.
involved
Yeah.
when you are having married sex as opposed to when
We
you're
are
having
having a
sex as a single
random, yes,
person.
yeah.
Absolutely.
There's the fact that you have new responsibilities. There's the fact that your
life
status has
happens.
changed.
Exactly.
Life
Then
happens.
God bless you if children
They
come
come in
along.
immediately.
Yeah.
You know, and then these people are just like, no, it's just going to.
there has to be that process
Yeah.
and that understanding and that, working together as a couple to walk through phases. So I remember when my husband and I had our first child and baby and all of that now. And at that point, she would be in a cot, but in our room, right? And because we didn't want to have sex with the baby in the
Don't want
room,
her to see it.
we would go out to the
Outside.
living room. But it was something that we had to decide together. We would go out to the living room, have sex,
and then
come
come
back.
back into the room.
And then we walk of shame in front of the baby. Oh, baby.
You don't want to know what mommy and daddy just did.
But you see, that was that season.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now they are grown. Now we will lock our doors and say, guys, go away.
They're out.
Exactly. And so I'm not even the kind of person that gets distracted in the middle of sex when the kids come and knock. I'm just like, go, mommy and daddy are coming. And then let's just continue.
Literally.
So you see, so different seasons and navigating through those seasons.
So it's not really about
Exactly.
It's not really
It's not
about
testing first.
this
Because
thing.
so many things
Things will
happen.
happen.
People have kids, desire can go down, things like that. I mean, you can't, it's not insurance. You can't insure and say, oh, yes, we've tested, we're good.
This
We're
is how
forever.
For the rest
this
of
is
my
how
life,
standard
it's
it
a
will
lie.
be.
Just they
No,
blow
It's a
my
lie,
mind.
right?
Won't be like that.
Provided you, and that's what I also say about sexual compatibility. I believe compatibility is so fluid. It's not a rigid construct, right? What for me is important is that the couple are open.
Okay.
They're open and they're honest with each other about whatever is going on, and they're supporting each other through the different seasons
in
of
their
life.
lives,
Because, for instance, I was talking to a lady who said that she and her husband got married, Christians and all of those things. And then the man, after a while, comes and says, I want to give me a blowjob. And she's like, the mother used to pray, Jesus.
The same mouth I used to pray.
How can I do that?
How will I go back and speak to the Lord?
Yeah, but that's also a form of incompatibility if you look
Yes,
at it. Because in
yes.
preferences now, we're not compatible.
Oh, the preference one.
Do you get?
Preference.
So it's not even just about how many times you want it. In preferences and things like that, there can be incompatibility.
Compatibility.
But you know what the husband did? He was very gracious about it. And they will talk about it. And then he will send her some things here and there.
Yeah, just to
It took her a
buttress.
year for her to even try it. But eventually they did. And that became part of their sexual menu as a couple. But you see how at a point there was some form of incompatibility.
but
And
we're
then
able to
when
walk through
things
it.
exactly they became, do you understand?
Yes.
So I feel it's a very
Fluid.
fluid concept and construct, not rigid.
Rigid.
So using this example that you
just
used
mentioned,
about,
yeah.
that you just mentioned about the blowjob thing, what exactly is acceptable sexually? Because there's a lot of you can't do this. I
because
mean,
of from-
I'm sure everybody
From
saw
a
that.
religious point of view.
Was what they used to call her mommy G or something.
Yeah.
The one that said if you do doggy, you're
Doggy
going to
style.
hell. The only thing you can do is missionary.
Missionary.
If you don't do missionary, you're going to hell. I mean,
Okay, so what's your
And
take on
based
that?
Mommy J, are you guys going to heaven like this?
ah.
I don't know.
Let's just leave it. We're all serving the
Jesus
Lord.
carries.
We're all serving the Lord.
But what's your take on it?
So how do I put this? I'm a very big believer that sex should be also about your comfort.
Okay.
Whatever you do, be comfortable with it, right? And so I usually would not define that for an individual or a couple. And so I would say, what are the parameters you use to define what is sexually acceptable to you? So if you're asking me, I can say oral, everything is on the table, but it's not about me. If I'm working with a client,
that's fine with
exactly,
you.
that's fine with me. But if I'm working with a client and the client is struggling, we want to walk through it together. So it's not, my sex therapist said, this is good. It's about you coming to that, going through that journey by yourself and deciding, okay, I'm at peace with this. Do you know that we have Christians that are okay with masturbation? And then we have Christians that are not okay with masturbation. I see it all the time in practice. And so you have some people and they're like, when it comes to masturbation, I'm okay. I don't think it's a bad thing because the Bible doesn't expressly say anything about it.
And sometimes I just need to knock one out.
Exactly, and it's better than even fornicating or exactly. So why don't
that's
I
the
just
excuse for it
use
to
my
happen,
mental stimulation to get what I want and knock one out?
Yeah.
So some people are fine with that. Who am I to say they're wrong? It's not me. It's not about me. It's about them. And some people are like, no.
You say no.
Even when we talk about like how do you explore yourself and get to know what you want, they're like, no.
But I hear what you're saying. But what happens when I'm comfortable with it, but then my spouse is not comfortable with it?
Yeah.
So I finally explored and discovered that I like this and that, and then this person like,
Where is this coming from?
No, it's not where is this coming from. Okay, yeah, we went on this journey, but now
You are taking it
you
to
are
another level.
going where you are going is you are carrying me where I don't know.
Okay.
You understand? So how do you deal with that?
Okay.
Where because I may be comfortable with something,
Yeah.
and then you aren't. How do we now?
So in the
Fix
context of a marriage,
Marriages.
Yes.
yeah. And so again, it boils down to communication and also respecting the
Boundaries.
fact that people can have boundaries when it comes to sex, right? And again, I always say this: when somebody says no to something, it's always important to understand the objection.
Okay.
What exactly is this person saying no,
No to.
to, right?
And why?
Exactly. And so maybe a woman says, I don't like being fingered, right? And there are different reasons why a woman may not like you, and you just say, oh, she doesn't like it. And so even though I want to do it to her, she doesn't like you, so I won't do it. But I've heard women who don't like being fingered because when they were sexually abused, that was
the
what was
trigger.
happened.
Trigger.
Exactly, that was the trigger. For some people, they're worried that you have dirt under your nails. And maybe you don't like to wash your hands or your nails are long. You know, some people keep one
Long.
specific
I don't know
finger
why
and
they do that thing. It's
right?
very annoying.
Exactly. So it might be about germs and hygiene. It might be about it being a trigger. Do you understand? It might be about the fact that the woman feels like the man doesn't know how to do it well yet,
Yes.
and she doesn't know how to
tell
tell
him.
him that this is how I prefer. Do you understand? So what exactly is the objection to this?
Okay.
And once you understand the objection, it makes it easier to walk
deal with,
through and
yeah.
to deal with, right? So
Okay, but what if the objection is something you can't deal with?
exactly. So if the objection is something the person can't deal with, then you have to make peace with the fact that
This will
this
never
person
happen.
has
But
said
what
that
if
these are the
that thing
boundaries.
is the thing that I want? This thing, I want this, and this person
Must
is
give
not,
it to me.
no, I don't have choice.
you
It's
know-
the only
you-
person that can give
Exactly.
me. So should I go and collect it? What should I do?
No,
How are we gonna have a conversation
Yeah.
about openness?
Yeah.
Is when I
When you
want
open
this
the
one thing,
relationship,
I
I
will
go
go and do it.
outside
But
and
for
I
every
do-
other thing, right? So how do we
So
do we
it
fix
also
that?
depends on what it is, right?
Okay.
And so if it has to do with maybe some sexual activities, like
Yes.
what we said, one of the things that I find is that when things like that happen, people start to fixate on what is not happening and they forget to
Focus on
enjoy
what is
happening
actually
and what is working. So we are just so fixated on
this
that
one
one
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
And we've forgotten every other thing that works. We've forgotten that we can explore a whole
Other-
lot
eh,
more,
yeah.
right? And so I feel like if people can take that fixation off and focus on what
the
they actually
others.
enjoy together, because it's not that you can't force somebody. You can, but I mean, what are the results of it, right? You shouldn't, is what I'm trying to say. You shouldn't force someone to do what
They
they
don't want
are
to
not
do.
are
They're
not
They're
comfortable
not
with
at
doing.
peace with.
Exactly, right? And so if we can stop fixating on that one thing and enjoy the other 99 things that we have,
Yeah.
that can help
To balance.
in situations like that. But again, if it's not a situation of I want sex and my partner does not want sex, now that's a bigger issue, it's a
Bigger issue.
different problem entirely.
Okay.
We of course we want to know what's going
No,
on, we want to
why.
know why, we want to know where all of these things
It's
are
coming
happening. I mean, troubleshoot basically
Yeah.
and see what exactly is going on. So if someone who is very sexual is married to someone who maybe later found out in the course of things that she's not even interested in sex, she's asexual and what have you, there's a problem.
Yeah.
There's a very clear problem in that kind of situation.
But-
But if it's a case where we troubleshoot a couple of things and some things are happening that are not brought to the fore, right? And then you start to work on those things. But we see that a lot and then things start to shift.
Okay, so there's this belief that people can't be asexual. I've encountered that a couple of times, especially for guys. So a woman meets a man
Okay.
who is asexual, and you've done all your this thing because if a man is asexual, automatically he's gay. That's he's knacking guys, or he wants to be knocked by guys. Or
That's what
something.
people think.
That's what people think. But there are actually people who
Asexual.
sexual is not even
A
a
big
thing
deal
for
for
them.
them.
How do you work through that? Because it's a problem. I want
If
sex.
there's a disparity, there's a
Yes,
discrepancy.
that's that level of
Yeah.
discrepancy.
So sorry, before you answer that, an example of an asexual person in a marriage. How do you tell how do you
How do you know if the person is asexual? The
Sexual
person
or
is
gay.
actually gay.
or a closet Do you understand?
But I hope you know that being gay does not make you asexual.
No,
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 but
that's what I
because
was
that's
saying. But you know the
interpretation.
thing is,
Okay,
so
alright.
it's
It's the
being gay doesn't
interpretation.
make you asexual.
Asexual.
Being
Yeah.
I'm just
asexual
saying
doesn't make
make
you
you
gay.
Yeah, it
But what we're
doesn't.
But the
saying is
thing
that
is,
because that's the
people's
belief
perspective.
yes,
perspective
and you
perception
as
of
the
that.
person who's in
in
that
the marriage, how
situation,
can you not tell
how
that?
can you
Okay,
tell
How
that
can
this
you
is
it's
what
not
it
because
is?
he's not attracted to me,
He's
because
just
he's just
not.
Not
asexual.
attracted to anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you find that out?
And it's not necessarily, so people can, in their journey, make educated guesses as to what they may be, but the other person may not know,
No. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at someone who has no interest in sex, and then there's no issue leading or feeding into that,
Yeah.
right? And the person says, oh, I don't have any issues. I mean, and it's true,
It's true.
right? You evaluate the person's history and all of that. There are no issues, and the person says, I've consistently all my life never been sexually attracted to anybody.
And in the marriage, the person doesn't have sex with the spouse for years. Is it possible?
Oh yes, it's possible.
So what
It's possible.
what do we now expect from the spouse?
Well, it's not about what we expect.
No,
It's
no,
about
okay, no.
the
So maybe that's a
decision.
wrong question. So now, okay,
So
I
they
want to give
have
a
to.
scenario. Wait, I
Yeah.
want to give a scenario. Say both of you are Christians.
Yeah.
Kept yourselves for marriage.
Yeah.
You get into marriage, and it's not happening.
And then you've been waiting.
All
It's
the
Now
not
time
reached
I've
happening.
there.
been waiting, and
The other person is not waiting, and you want to
Procreate.
procreate.
Eh?
Yes, and you have a now we're looking at it from the outside and saying, okay, this person is asexual.
Yeah.
And you want to procreate.
No, but you know it's possible to procreate
Yes.
without.
No, I'm getting
So I don't think we should talk about it from the point of view of procreating.
See, people who identify as asexual can have sex. It doesn't mean they have a desire for it.
Yes, I
so
get
that's
that.
the
have it.
They
difference.
can have it. Okay, so that's the difference. They can have it, but
It doesn't
not
mean
They
as
just don't
often.
really want.
So the
they
thing
just
is,
don't really.
there's so many bloodlines
Lines,
around
okay,
this, because
alright.
you have people who are not interested in sex, but they are not asexual. But there's something that just hasn't been fixed.
Figured, okay.
But because the partner wants it, they just keep doing it.
Oh,
Do you
okay,
understand?
okay.
And then you have people who may never have had sexual desire towards anybody, any gender in any way or form, but they're physically capable of having
Having
sex
sex.
if the partner says, okay,
Oh,
this,
don't-
and
don't
they,
let
and
me-
they say,
I
okay,
must-
let's just do it. But it comes to, for me, I think people need to be very honest about these
Yeah.
things, even before getting married.
Mm.
And I don't know if it's, perhaps I could say I have a progressive mindset, but if you are a certain way, maybe if you're sexual and then you meet a partner who is very sexual, I think it's okay to say, look, this is who I am. I've never had
Had
this,
it.
but I want to marry you because we look good together. Because you can be romantically attracted to somebody,
Someone, yeah, but not
sexually
sexually attracted.
You can be aesthetically attracted to the person, but not romantically.
be
or-
value attracted to the
exactly.
person.
So
It really depends
even
on-
intellectually,
yeah.
it's all of those things, and I think people should be able to say, "Hey, this is
Why we're
what
coming
this
together."
is what I want out of this.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?" Because you will find some people that will say, "Okay, if this is what it's going to be, then let's find another arrangement for my sexual needs." Do you understand? I think people can have those conversations, or at the very least, put everything on the table and decide, okay, this is a no-go for me.
So if this is
As
it, this
opposed
is
to
it.
hiding it
Yes.
and then just
Let
putting the other
everybody
person
under
exactly.
undue.
because it's you're just you're putting that person through misery.
Yes,
For no reason.
Yeah,
Very
seriously.
serious.
Okay, so
misery.
another thing that is interesting that would be nice to talk about is fetishes.
Okay.
Because I mean I got a couple of fetishes.
Okay, so
Well-
tell us about them.
I'd like to know.
The more you know, fetishes, I want to know more. But so there's some people with fetishes.
Yeah.
How do you handle fetishes
Yeah, so
in a relationship?
Because if
it
the
can
other
be
person is
tricky.
not, if the other person is not gay, you're like,
No, it can even be tricky because
Yeah.
like there's some things like even you know that this one is a bit,
you're tilting, you're going too far.
oh my god. So I think I want to separate kinks
Okay.
from fetishes
Okay.
in a way,
Yeah, okay.
right? Because kinks are like sexual activities that, for some people, traditionally are outside the border. But again, this is very subjective.
Okay.
Because what was outside the border 10 years ago
Ago.
is maybe a now.
Yeah.
10 years ago, maybe today is very
Acceptable.
exactly, right? And what is outside the border for one couple, maybe inside the border for you guys. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Exactly. So kink is very subjective, right? the experience.
Experience.
Okay.
Fetishes, on the other hand, sometimes they can be,
Borderline.
exactly, between both of them.
Yeah,
But
because
fetishes, on the other hand, are like fixations
Mm.
required for
are they,
sexual arousal to happen.
yes,
Ah,
yes. So it's like
okay.
It's a must-have. It's
yes. If it's not
integral
there,
to it. So a kink. So you might have a kink for maybe feet, and somebody who has a foot fetish would it's integral for it to be part of the experience. But this one, you can just enhance it. Do you understand? And so drawing that line, just understand. So you can have people who have different fetishes. Again, it is just is it
Comfortable. Is it acceptable and
does it
comfortable between both
work
of
for
you?
both of you?
exactly.
Okay.
I do remember one guy who had a foot fetish. And when we would talk, he would say to me, I cannot, no matter how beautiful the woman is, if she has feet that I don't resonate with, I'm never going to date her. I'm never going to marry her. But it's good that he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it saves
Because it saves the
some poor
person
girl
who has
heartache.
to-
Because
you can just say,
she'll just
"Auntie,
wake up in the night and
try.
you're touching the feet. Once
Take off. What are you doing?" And he's licking your feet, and you're like, "Yo."
Exactly.
But at least, and
yeah.
but the other person has to also be able to resonate.
Mate with
With-
it and
with
be on
that.
board with it.
To
To
yes,
a
be on
certain
board is
extent,
what I
yeah.
To
really
be on
think
board,
it's
yeah.
about, because
if you're not on board, there's nothing the person wants to say.
Yeah.
Because I know there's one we're still dragging. We're still dragging.
as long as I live, I will conquer.
We're still
I'm still
dragging
there.
it.
You
We're
insist
still
it.
dragging. I will not.
I'm sure your viewers want to know what it is.
No, I can't tell you because you can't find him now. Not be that. No. So, with everything that you have said, which I know that I have learned a lot, and I feel like I can make you proud and be a
Yes.
mini therapist,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
But so that I don't take a title that's not mine. What would you advise would be a very good strategy for couples about to get
Maintaining.
married and couples that are already in marriage
Yeah.
to maintain a safe and
A healthy.
Healthy sex life.
sex life? Yes.
So for those about to get married, here's what I say. Whether or not you choose to engage in sex,
Before marriage.
it's important to engage with sex.
Okay.
And what do I mean? It means you guys need to talk about
Not
it. And align your beliefs, your understandings, and all of those things, because that creates a solid foundation for both of you going into marriage. The reason a lot of people also struggle with sex in marriage is because people don't know how to talk about sex.
it.
But
So
if you
communication.
knock that out, like settle it from the beginning, no matter the challenges that you face when you get married, because there's that freedom of expression,
Question.
there's room to resolve things, and that is a very very great foundation to build before getting into marriage, regardless of your sexual history as a couple. Now, for couples who are already married, of course, being intentional is very very important. Like, life happens, work, kids, all of those things, and if you're in Lagos, traffic, all of those things happen. You have to be intentional. If you're not being intentional about it,
That's where
it won't survive on autopilot. That's just what it is. Because more often than not, you're finding that there are usually discrepancies in desire with couples at different times and different stages of their life. Sometimes the man is higher, the woman is lower. Sometimes the woman is higher, like that. Do you understand? And stress and life, all of those things happen. It's important that people are being very intentional. So even when I work with people and they say, "Oh, I have a lot of stress in my life," it's fine, right? But how can we create room for you in your life, right? And so those intentional things have to come into play for you to, again, be able to have a sex life that is passionate, exciting, even well into your hundreds and 120s.
So there's one last question before we jump off, and I don't know, it just popped into my head because I realized that I've had that conversation with a couple of people, even in like previous relationships as well. What do you do when you guys have great sex, but the rest of it is
The other part of the relationship.
everything else in the relationship is like, but like this person, once me and this person connect,
you shift the edge.
the sparks used to fly.
Fly,
You understand?
yeah.
And I asked that because in most cases, in some cases, you're married to the person.
Yeah.
Which is fine, and then the whole conversation is now a whole other things about therapy and all that. But in some cases, you're not married to the person; you're married to someone else.
Okay.
But this other person, if they show, and you will fall, and if you fall,
Problem.
do you understand what I mean? So how do you deal with that?
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, how do you deal with urges for somebody
Somebody
else
else.
aside your spouse?
It's not just the OGs. Why is that one? Why is it like that?
Sometimes it's inexplicable. Sometimes things like
It's
that
just
happen.
chemistry.
Yeah, sometimes it's just chemistry.
Mm.
And sometimes you find that people bond through certain similar life experiences that they've had. So for instance, you have maybe two people who have experienced trauma in their lives, and when they meet sexually,
It's a different ballgame.
because instinctively, at a very basic level, there's trauma
Join them.
bonding. Do you understand?
Oh, yeah.
And that can, right? I'm not saying that's the only
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah,
right?
but
Yeah.
But
most
that can
likely.
happen.
Yeah.
And then you have some people, it's just chemistry, right? That chemistry is really good, and they feed off of each other's energy. More often than not, when that happens, you're finding someone who is a giver, meeting somebody who is a giver, and both of them are giving each other, but also receiving at the same time, right? And so sometimes that chemistry would happen. And again, how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Some people say the 80-20 and whatever, but sometimes that 20 that people say, oh, maybe this is the 20. Sometimes that 20 might not be a 20 in your estimation. It might be the 80 in your own estimation, right? But when people look at it, you have a beautiful everything. It's just sex now. You have 80%, just 20%. But the
manage
truth is
it.
that their estimation of 20% for that
For that
person
person.
might
Might not
not be
be
20% at all, right? But it's also important that, if you want to work through that marriage together, it's important that both of you perhaps start to seek help
Yeah.
to get to that point, how both of you can get to the same page,
page, and then
basically
it's
to
Yeah.
work
start
through things
onboarding
together and
and-
start to unravel things that are going through.
Great. So speaking of seeking help, I mean, one of the reasons that
You're
we are
here.
here is because when we had our issues, we were able to communicate, and then we were able to come see you, and then you helped us through a very, very, very rough patch in our lives, and for that,
Privilege.
we're always
very
thankful.
grateful.
So for people who are out there who are seeking help, who are stuck in a frustrated place, or who don't know what to do, how can they contact you? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah.
Do you have resources that they can access
If they don't want to contact you,
Yeah.
you know,
at,
that kind
at
of thing.
first? Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So we have resources that people can access. So I have a book. It's called Sexcapades.
Sexcapades.
Yeah.
Ashamed that I haven't got
So we're
it
gonna
yet,
put
but yeah.
we're gonna put that
You
up
bet
on the
I will.
screen for
I say you
you.
should bring it.
So how do they get it?
Yeah, and so they can just get it on. So my website is www.olawunmi.com.
Okay.
So they can get the book on the website. We also have what we call the University of Sex, where people can learn on their own. So from the privacy of your phone, your home, you're learning like sexual skills to help you in the bedroom. So there's also that same website, of course.
okay.
And then of course, if people want to like do the
Do
one-on-one
one-on-one
work
consulting.
and work in therapy, that's also on the website where they can book
Okay.
either couple or individual sessions.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
So we've just concluded another session on
Exciting episode.
I'm sure that we haven't been able to answer every single
Good question,
or every
but-
single thought you've had. But I mean, feel free to connect with us. You can leave comments. You can, put your questions in the comments. If you're not comfortable just, putting questions out there in the open, you can reach out to us, and then we can always connect you with someone who might be able to help you. Yeah. So don't go away. Stay tuned for the game.
I might have one in this one. I might win.
Going to treat her matter.
Yes.
See you guys.
Thank you. And don't forget to like, share, and
Yeah, don't forget.
What's the last thing?
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Yes.
Subscribe. Your subscription helps us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Hi, and welcome to another game challenge segment or games. Why are you?
I'm doing my Captain America pose.
So today's game is guess the drink. So we're both going to take sips from here and then say the answer at the same time, sort of like from each of the straws and guess the correct drink. Okay. All right. You ready?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So who's counting down? 3,
Just sip.
2. You need to be in the mood. That's it.
I've been in the mood to sip.
3, 2, 1, and Virgin Mojito.
Virgin mojito. We're supposed to say the name at the same time. Okay.
I'm correct. Feroz.
That's some kind of weird concussion that somebody watered down.
Tastes like Feroz to me.
It's not really roots.
Okay, are we correct? No.
Look at it's still there.
Okay.
Still there.
Sorry. Okay. So next one.
Feroz.
I don't know what this is. It's like pineapple or something. Okay. Chapman.
Schweppes Chapman. This one though.
I don't know what these two are.
So Chapman, Feroz,
Virgin mojito.
Virgin Mojito. This is like somebody
It
did.
had pineapple in it.
No, it didn't have pineapples. Like malt with water in it, and somebody put a splash of alcohol.
I don't know what that is.
I know what that is.
Maltina.
No. Name.
Do I drink it?
No, you drink it. Yes, you do.
I drink it and I don't know it.
Yes, I'm trying to remember the name. I'm looking at the can, but I'm trying to remember the name.
What's the funny?
That's that right now.
Right. I've detoxed from. Yeah. Okay. But it's a flavor I've not tasted.
Oh, it's citrus. It's the one you've definitely tasted. Yes, it is.
It's just funny. Anyway, right. Okay. So,
Now
are we going to find out?
Yeah, so first one was
Virgin Mojito.
the next one was actually
Star Red Black.
Uh-huh.
The next one was Feroz.
Pineapple. But it's Feroz pineapple.
It's just this favorite pineapple.
I said it tastes like pineapple.
That's not Feroz.
What else is pineapple?
Pineapple.
Lakasha doesn't have pineapple.
They do actually.
Then,
That's what was the shop.
okay. Alright.
So he won again.
That was it.
I don't understand. Are you saying it like they're paying you money to say that?
I don't understand. He's just
Because I'm
telling
not
us
understanding. He's saying it with too much.
with too much what?
The song who
Why are you pointing in the
Winner.
camera?
Winner.
I don't understand.
Winner.
I'm not getting it.
Take a sip. Take a sip.
No.
Take a sip.
Leave me.
Stand up. No, that looks wrong. For the champions.
Alright.
Can we close?
Yes.
So close.
No, you close.
No.
I'm the winner. You have to do what I say. Close.
So thank you for wait. Thank you for watching to the end. Thank you for watching to the end. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and fight for me, guys. Like I feel like they're sabotaging me on this set, and I've been tendering my resignation. They refuse to take it. I quit.
Winner, thank you for watching. Bye bye.
Yeah, like no, that's something I would.
Don't let's explore.
let's
Don't let's
explore
explore. Let's just be focusing on,
So they
the
don't
real
want to
thing,
like
the real
even
thing.
explore
Sorry,
themselves.
should we hold?
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.